Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Huge Update Interviews, episode 15. This week we are joined by POWERHOOF, who are currently two guys known as Dave and Barney. Say hello, guys.
Hello, I'm Dave.
This is Barney.
Hi guys, so how was POWERHOOF formed? I guess it's the first question we want to find out.
We were both working together. We'd been working together on and off at a few different development studios over a number of years, and we both sort of decided about the same time that we should probably quit and do the whole starving artist, trying to be an indie thing before we had mortgages and kids. And so we both just decided, okay, let's just we're not going to be here at EA forever, so let's just quit now and see how we go. Burn through some savings for a year, see what we can make, and then probably try and come crawling back if it doesn't work out. So that's how it
we made sure we were very, very friendly when we quit because we thought we'd be coming crawling back any minute now.
And by any chance that kind of influenced your flagship name's game, Cruel?
No, I hadn't thought about that.
Did you subconsciously put in there, you know?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, thinking.
It did influence our next game. Please give me my job back. But that's it.
I've run out of money. Please rehire me.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did.
So, for those viewers or listeners, rather, who don't know what Cruel's about, how would you sum the game up in a couple of sentences?
It's a local multiplayer dungeon crawler where all the monsters and traps are controlled by other players.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's it. One sentence. Yeah.
Nice and direct to the point.
Someone's done this before. You guys are used to doing this elevator pitch thing.
Well, it's the one thing. It's the one thing that we do have pretty succinctly for the game is it's got a pretty specific, explainable point. 1 point.
Hook. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was the inspiration behind it then?
We did a little multiplayer game jam thing, and Barney made this little prototype in a couple of days that was basically the raw elements of Crawl. You had the idea of the game jam was to just, we sort of set a date that we'd all get together to play a bunch of games that we'd all made. So we had a bit of time to work on them, and we thought we'd make them all local multiplayer because then we know that they'll be fun to play with each other. Barney's sort of contribution was a game that it looks pretty similar to Crawl in the layout. You had rooms, you go in between the rooms, and one player enters a room, and then there's just a bunch of monsters, and everyone else is suddenly controlling these monsters and wiggling their joysticks to try and work out who they are before they get killed. So that was the initial. That's sort of how it started. In terms of inspiration, I guess Barney can elaborate on that.
I was pretty local multiplayer, I guess, focused growing up, Super Nintendo and arcade machines and stuff. So, all my good memories are Bomberman, Gauntlet, Super Mario Kart, GoldenEye. Nice, yeah. So, I wanted to make something like that. I was kind of pretty aware that. This is probably a secret that we don't want to get out, but with local multiplayer stuff, the game experience is a lot more than the elements you make. People make a lot more of it than just what's there. You just make some tools and the people can entertain each other with it for hours, even if, you don't have to make a huge amount of content. And so I just thought, this would be a thing it would be really fun to make some local multiplayer stuff. And in the first game jam, I'd sort of made a 4-player thing, which was just this side-scrolling thing where you're sort of shooting each other, and all the characters had pictures of our own heads on them, and it was a pretty terrible game, and it was sort of mostly made so that we could put in some people from our past that we didn't like very much and have their heads on there and shoot them a whole lot. But that ended up being so much more fun than I expected, just because it was 4 players on screen at once. And even though everything about it was bad, still everyone was just laughing and going crazy when they were playing it. So for the second one of these game jams, I thought, I want to do something it's a bit less terrible, that actually makes a bit of use of the kind of local multiplayer stuff. And definitely what's fun with that is kind of teaming up against each other and betraying each other and sort of switching roles and stuff. So yeah,
the
that's
asynchronous
sort of
nature and stuff. Yeah.
By any chance, then, did you play stuff like Munchkin? You know, the board game, because it kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
No,
Yeah,
a bunch
we
of
never
people
did.
have suggested
Still
that,
gotta
though.
play it.
And yeah. It's been on our list ever since people have said that. We're like, oh, let's go and play Munchkin and see what we can steal from that.
Yeah, honestly, 'cause it's a great board game. When I first saw Crawl, and you explained it, I'm like, it just reminds me so much of that sort of mechanic. But of course, that's just a 2D board game. It doesn't have the same sort of interactivity that you get when it's 4-player multiplayer.
Yeah.
With your games, though, of course, you mentioned game jams quite a bit. Is that how a lot of them get off the ground?
Yeah,
I think
like,
so.
I guess when you and so small studio, or there's just a couple of you, you're really going to be relying on the game being quite interesting, because you're not just going to be able to go, okay, I'll just make Assassin's Creed but better or something like that. There's no way that's going to happen. So really trying lots of little ideas and finding something that's just kind of interesting and unique a bit, that's probably the best way you can compete. And so the game jams are great for that, because it lets you just try stuff over a very short amount of time and see if there's something interesting there, if it works, or feel like you're not burdened by, okay, we've got to make this into a giant project. So think of what's the best game you could make, and we'll try and design that. You can just go, let's just make something stupid and terrible, and then sometimes it's like, actually, there's a seed of a really good game in here we could elaborate on.
I think that's a pretty important sort of point. Like with Crawl, at the time I did that prototype, I was working on another thing that I was pretty concerned about, like being good and being something that I could make into something marketable. And that's really confining. And so for Crawl, it was just, this is just a game jam. This is just a throwaway. It doesn't have to be good. So I'm kind of free to just try a bunch of stuff. And I know we'll have fun messing around with it on the day anyway. We'll get drunk and we'll play it and we'll laugh and stuff. So it was kind of the fact that it was allowed to be terrible that kind of allowed us to try some stuff. And so I think that's pretty indicative of game jam stuff, where you don't stress so much. You're not like, who are we going to market to? Who cares about this? What's our hook? You're just like, well, this would be fun to make, and it's an interesting idea. So it's worth the couple of days on it.
Definitely. So when you do your game jams, do you both meet up, or do you do it sort of over the web, via Skype? And kind of, what is the mechanic? What's the dynamic? Is it like one designer, one programmer, or could you both sort of mix and match?
Well, I guess because it's just short. They're just short little things. It can differ. And you can just we might do it separately, or I might I might try and do art, or Barney will just try and prototype mocking something up himself in code or in something he's used to. I mean that's one of the benefits, is you get to try new things that you wouldn't get to do because you're not a professional at that very specific thing. But then it lets you you learn a lot doing that sort of thing. So so we haven't been. So I've been doing a few game jams recently, but Barney's been full on arting Crawl. But we've got to try and do some more soon. There's this pixel jam at the moment. We might try and do something for that.
There's always so many game jams going on. It's a great opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would your advice then be to sort of young developers out there, to get into the industry or to get on board? Would you say game jams are the way forward, or would you say they should get a job in the kind of game industry like you guys obviously did originally?
I mean,
that definitely helps.
I don't know if I don't know if organized game jams are specifically necessary. Just make games in a short amount of time. You can just do that for yourself and just set yourself some constraints. I think that's one of the best things about a game jam, is having a clear time limit and some interesting constraints that stop you from just going, what's the biggest, best game I could possibly make, and go, okay, well, what's one of this style? So even if the constraint is this weekend we'll do a local multiplayer game, then it's next weekend there's this genre of game I'm curious about, let's make something in that genre or whatever, and make making complete games or roughly complete in short periods of time of lots of different types, I think it's the best thing you can do. And there's no resume better than just a bunch of games that are good, or that show potential, show that you can do art, or show that you can do code, or show that you can do both. And I mean, we spent quite a few years in the industry, and I'm a little bit jealous of kids who grew up and just started making games straight away. So I don't think you have to spend a lot of years in the industry if you can make games. There's definitely a lot of stuff that we learned that was very useful to do with managing projects and scoping and things. But I think you can get your head around that from the industry and just from doing a lot of your own projects. I mean, sorry, just from the community, from talking to people and showing stuff around.
Definitely. And so at the moment with Crawl, what's been the hardest part of the game development process?
Mm.
Because of course you started off as a game jam. Have you encountered any roadblocks, or has it kind of been smooth sailing since the game jam?
Well, early on, the most difficult thing was actually just finding a format for the game that made sense, because the initial game jam was just really an infinite game where there was no kind of tracking of anything. You're the hero and you fight monsters until you die, and then someone else is the hero and they fight monsters until they die. There was no end to it. We had to go through a lot of iteration to try and work out, okay, what's the best, do we give people like a number of monster lives, and then if they run out, then they don't get to play anymore, and whoever runs out the last is the winner, or do we have it just something where, like, so initially the first thing we did was just like, after level 10, that's the game is complete. The game ends and it just says this person did the most damage or something, or this person got the most kills, and that was very unsatisfying. And then we tried a bunch of stuff, and eventually settled on. Yeah, so we tried things where, like, you've sort of got a health bar that's going down the whole time, or you've got a timer, or you've got eventually the thing we found was you sort of have to be working towards progress. You have to have. We didn't, we wanted all the players to be in the game the whole time. Otherwise, you just get people just waiting for ages for the game to finish. So all these constraints, and ended up having something where when you're a hero, you're kind of progressing towards your goal, which is to reach level 10 specifically for your character, and then you've got a climax fighting this boss, and that works. I think when we put in the boss, very strange
that made
game.
A huge difference. Yeah. Like before, we had the boss in there, and we had sort of talked a bit about, like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a huge monster at the end that you all controlled, and that was just one of those ideas that were like, of course it'd be cool. It'd always be cool if some crazy, like, impossible thing happened at the end. But I think we sort of at one point said, let's just prototype it. Let's just spend like a couple of days and prototype and see if we can do like a big co-op controlled monster at the end. And then once that was in there, it felt like a game. It felt like it had an end game. It felt like it had a purpose. But yeah, so there was definitely a lot of time where we were putting in a lot of work on the game where we didn't know if it was going to be a game. Like, we knew that it was kind of your split second motivation of like fight a monster. Yeah, that was fun, but we just trying to actually build a game with a win condition and a kind of clear purpose around that was actually pretty challenging.
And so is there like a definitive winner at the end of the session? So they've got past over 10 waves and the boss. Will there be one player then that is the grand winner?
Yeah.
So
it's competitive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it's score related.
It's just down to killing the boss now. Yeah.
Oh, just down to killing the boss now. Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So we've got a boss at the end, and the boss is cooperatively controlled by the other three players, and so that's their chance to prevent him from killing the boss. And then if anyone kills the boss, they win. And so whoever,
that's cool.
You do have to, your hero has to make a certain amount of progress to be able to fight the boss as well. So you kind of have the sort of the base game kind of building up your hero, and your target is to get to level 10 and beat the boss. So it kind of integrates the boss with the rest of the game.
That's cool. And you mentioned, of course, that they're leveling up. Are there like any particular RPG RPG sort of trees that they can go down at all, or is it kind of a linear progression from level 1 to 10? How much freedom does the player have in regards to that sort of creating a character?
So most
all
of
that
the
stuff comes in. Oh, sorry. You want to take
That's
it?
right. Yeah. So the way we ended up doing it was having most of the hero's progression come through buying stuff in the shop. So you're buying stat potions, which will increase one stat and slightly decrease another, and so you can kind of end up with builds where you're strong but have very little health, or you're really fast but really weak, that kind of thing. And then changing out your sort of abilities, so your primary weapon, your secondary weapon, and also just getting lots of weird random artifacts that make you bleed acid and stuff like that. So there's that progression for the hero, and then on the monster side, or on the sort of the side when you're fighting against the hero, you're also progressing by evolving all your monsters in different ways. So you've got 3 different core monsters, and each one has a sort of different tree that you can upgrade. So
that sounds really cool.
That stuff was an interesting challenge because we really wanted the kind of the result and developing character of an RPG. So, every time you play, you end up with a very different play style based on you might be shooting arrows, and then you might be teleporting, or you might be having like a shield that you're using, or all sorts of stuff. But we wanted that without all of the slowness of an RPG, and going into your screen and ticking things onto stats, and doing your level up stat distribution and stuff. And so it's definitely been a challenge to try and get it to play in just that arcadey way where you're just running and picking stuff up, and it's kind of just developing it on its own, but it still feels like it fits those RPG expectations. So yeah, and we've sort of wound up in a bit of a middle ground, I think, where we've got a store, and so most of your upgrading is through the store. And so the store is like, it feels very RPG-ish, and it slows things down maybe a little bit more than we'd like, but it's such an established trope in RPGs that I think, I think it's just sort of an expectation to be able to do that. So yeah, it's just another one of those things where Crawl is in a weird nether sort of region between 2 types of games, and we're kind of juggling between, well, people expect this from an RPG, but then people want that from just an action arcade game, and kind of trying to find a middle ground where we're getting what we need, but we're not sort of disappointing people or surprising them with mechanics that just don't work the way that they expect them to.
So it sounds like then kind of pacing the gameplay is probably the hardest thing then, between, as you said, like the tropes that you're expected to put in there, and of course the kind of fast gameplay that you kind of want to make at the same time.
Yeah. And we have a constant battle.
Balancing against the balancing against when you've got both, where everyone's sort of playing together and switching back and forth between the hero and the monsters, trying to get a balance where the hero, if your hero is upgrading his stuff, that doesn't let him be able to more easily get gold to be able to keep upgrading their stuff and kind of steamroll the other players. And so that was a hard thing to find a balance for. And the solution we've got works, and is kind of weird, but it works, where basically you only collect gold to upgrade your hero in the store when you're not the hero. So you get little bits when you're the hero, but most of it you get by actually doing damage to the other heroes as a monster. And that means that you basically have to, you sort of reach this sort of tipping point where I'm getting overwhelmed, and then another player gets a chance, and then you get to build up some gold. And if you don't get to be the hero for a long time, then when you do get to be the hero, you will have built up a lot of gold, so you can go and buy a lot of stuff in the shop and have a good run.
That's really cool. I love the idea that the player's constantly progressing, even if they're not playing as the hero.
Yeah, so that took a lot of iteration and thinking about, I guess.
I imagine quite a lot of testing to get that element right.
Yeah. There was a long time where the game just didn't seem to work at all, I think, early on.
It's definitely something where it's really delicate to balance. And when we made the first prototype, the funnest thing was when it was imbalanced, when you'd get a room where you've got just like you just spawn as a really terrible monster, and then suddenly it was this massive challenge to do any damage to the hero at all. You'd be this I think we made the slime thing that just its move speed was really, really slow. It didn't have any projectiles. It just had a tiny little melee attack. And as soon as anyone spawned as one of those slimes, they would be having the time of their lives just because they're so stupid and terrible and just trying to like sneak in there and do 1 damage. And so then since we made it a proper game and we're selling it, people are going to be less forgiving of those kind of crazy imbalances. So it's a weird thing where people want to feel like the game's balanced and it's not unfair to me, but it's actually all those slight imbalances where, for this room, I'm overpowered for a bit. For that room, I'm underpowered for a bit. Those are actually the bits that are the exciting bits that people really enjoy. So it's this tough balance of trying to give that randomization in balance enough that people are like, this is exciting, but not so much that people feel like, I just got the crap guy over and over again. I don't have a chance.
Yeah, definitely. That must be a very a quite difficult algorithm you must create to try and make sure the players are always enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, of course, that you're now selling it. So Crawl's on early access. How did the launch go, guys?
It was all right. Yeah. So we had a lot of press and stuff when we first went on Greenlight, and then we kind of thought, oh man, we're amazing at marketing. We're so great at this. And then for our launch, it sort of felt a bit flat compared to that. But actually, I think it was pretty good. And in fact, it's post-launch, it's been really, really good as well. Like in terms of sales, and that's a lot better than we expected. We sort of thought, because a lot of people sort of say, all your sales are in the first week, and that just hasn't been the case at all. Yeah,
so you've been on for around a year or so, haven't you now? Like, how was the service? How was early access for people that, I've never used it. What's it like as a service to use?
We'd come from working on mobile games, and I guess especially for me, because I was maybe doing doing sort of smaller projects. There's a huge maintenance cycle. So you make the game, like might take a year or something, and then you spend 2 years just updating it, adding stuff, because when you first buy a game on iOS, that's like, if it's a successful game, you kind of expect that that's just the start and they're going to keep adding stuff. And so you sort of build that into the design, and it kind of made sense to do early access. Early access was a bit earlier when a bit sort of younger when we started it. And it's got some different connotations now. But at that point, it felt like, early access is just sort of a way of players getting to expect, I can buy this game and I can expect all this awesome new stuff as well. And that felt like a really positive thing. But then I guess the other side is that people just feel like, early access, I can just release a horrible unfinished game and people will pay for it, which is not really which is kind of the downside to, because a lot of people have that feeling and then don't want to buy into it. But our approach was definitely like, let's make a game that's really fun and sort of finished in terms of being playable, and then we can just add stuff and then get people excited to build up a community of people who are following it and seeing the new stuff we're adding and excited about talking about what ideas things to add and things like that. So that side's been good.
Awesome. So how have the community's response sort of shaped the game's development now?
The community thing has been awesome. That's probably been the most surprising thing, because working for a big company, you're just so distant from anyone who plays the game. You wouldn't be allowed to personally ever, interact if there's a problem or if someone likes something. That's happening between the customer and the PR department or the community manager, or you're never interacting with people yourself. And growing up just as a kid, like making things and showing them to my friends and trying to make them laugh and stuff, that was the funnest thing. The funnest thing wasn't actually toiling away. The funnest thing was going, I know this guy thought this last picture that I drew was really funny. If I draw one like this, he's going to think it's even more funny. And then when you show him and he likes it, that's really rewarding. And that's what it feels like a lot more with early access. It's just kind of, just like a personal back and forth and kind of joking around with actual people. So yeah, that's been a massive surprise, really. And kind of seeing, they really liked this thing. All right, I know what's going to surprise them in the next one. It's also actually trying to learn the skills of going into the forums and harvesting the right information and not being upset by every frustrated comment, of which there's actually very few. But I think it's a process of trying to learn that, when people are really outspoken about something negative about the game, I mean, that means they really care about the game. People who don't care about the game just aren't on the forums, don't care. So if someone's like, I'm really upset that this is like this balance should be changed, that actually, when I stop and think about it, or when they're like, this has to have online multiplayer, these guys are such hacks, I can't believe they wouldn't put online multiplayer, like that means that person really wants to play the game and they're pissed off that they can't. So yeah, I think that's been a bit of a learning process of like just getting to be comfortable with people, because you're never going to make everybody happy, and being comfortable that some people are really upset and that's just because they really care about the game. And 99% of the time, as soon as you talk to them, they're not upset anymore. Even if you say, the reason it's like that is this, but we'll do our best, whatever. They're, thanks, yeah, great. So yeah, that's been definitely the best thing, dealing with the community, and with a bit of weird internet stuff to get our heads around.
Yeah, well, it's actually a really great way of putting it. Actually, I haven't had any developers say actually the negative feedback can be seen as a purely positive light. As you said, like, it's because they care that much. That's why they're responding to you, or that's why they're saying something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a great way of putting it, because I know we've had some of my friends that have made games and stuff have said it's very daunting, can kind of put you down a bit. But I guess seeing it in that sense, it's like, well, they're only saying it because they care.
It's definitely hard. It's definitely hard to actually, in practice, to keep reminding yourself that when you're looking at stuff and you're working really hard, and then people are like, this new stuff's really awesome. But it'd be cool if you could do this as well. And you'd be like, they're never happy or something. But then, so you've got to kind of keep reminding yourself, no, that's positive. That's good. It's really hard.
They're just really excited about the. And a lot of the time, like, just the rhetoric that people use on the internet is just really extreme. Like, people don't say like, I wouldn't mind this. They're like, it has to have that. Or, that they don't say like, I'm surprised they don't have online multiplayer. They're like, these developers deserve to die for not putting online multiplayer. Like, it's just because of just the nature of internet forums, to have your voice heard, like a mild sort of opinion just doesn't stand out and doesn't really exist. So everyone's speaking with much more extreme rhetoric than what they really mean, or what they would actually say to your face if you were having a conversation with them.
I guess the person who speaks loudest gets heard.
You
did mention online abilities. Are there any plans to make the game available online?
No, I had a good look at it. I had a good look at it, last year. And spent a few months delving into that, which was fun. I learned a lot. But it's not going to be possible for Crawl, unfortunately.
That's fair enough.
Hopefully the sequel or something.
I think
so there is a sequel planned then?
No, not specifically. Just the upshot that we learned was we probably could do this, but we should plan for it from the start and build a game around it. And so it's something that sort of backwards putting into this game that we've sort of built with just none of that stuff in mind was just going to be a huge headache and too much work for us. We've got way too much hands just getting the thing up and running in the local version. But I mean, it did at least confirm to us, hey, like in the future we should think about this, because when we started Crawl, it was our first thing, and we really didn't expect anyone to buy it. Basically we expected, we'll sell 1,000 copies or something, and then we'll go back to EA, and so we were being cautious, but we also just hadn't tried to sell something ourselves before, so we didn't know what to expect. So at that time, to go, oh, let's make an online multiplayer game that that just like has this minimum of 8 months of online stuff and all of this, just the way that it grows, the amount of testing and the kind of testing you have to do is crazy. We would never have. I don't think we would have made the game if it was that big to start with. So it's sort of the way that it's grown organically on early access, actually, that we make a thing that's kind of small and then gauge to people like this, and then if they like it, we're like, okay, well, it's definitely worth our time to grow it a bit. That has kind of allowed it to grow into a thing that's a lot bigger than we ever kind of intended in the start. So people look at it now and go, oh, well, it's a game of this size, it should be online, but it's only a game of that size through kind of slow iterating and slow creeping up of scale, as we've kind of seen. Seen it. Okay, yeah, no, this hasn't been a failure. All right, we can grow it a little bit. Now this next part, no, that's not a failure. All right, we can grow it a little bit. And that's definitely a strength of early access. But it puts us in a position where we haven't done that planning for the scale of project it is right from the start.
I mean, it's great news, though, having that much people saying, hey, we want this online. I mean, that's just a very positive thing, isn't it? Knowing that there's that much demand, more than you, as you said, even imagined, hence the leaving EA in a very nice and pleasant way.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're pretty confident that when the time comes, if we did want to do a sequel, we could jump right into doing that online and, people would be into it.
Yeah,
Definitely. So
I got a question for you guys. When you talk to your community, what's often the size of the parties that they play in? Is it mostly single player, or do they actually get together in a 4-man team and do runs? Like, what have you found is like the number that is often played in the game right now?
I think it's hard to tell. We get a lot of probably the best feedback we get is when people are tweeting just pictures of them playing at a party or something, because it's really fun seeing, oh, sweet, there's just people having this fun party and they're playing our game and we're making it better for them. It's kind of like a really positive thing. I think that the people in the Steam community, some of the core people would be playing it themselves a lot, and I think they get their friends together to play it as well. But the people who are posting regularly are I think are playing it by themselves a lot more, for the most part. Yeah, no, it's kind of hard to tell. We did ask a question, because we've got the ability to play. You can play with bots, and we've got the ability to play without bots, just with 2 people or 3 people, rather than 4. And we weren't sure if that was actually getting used, and so we asked about that. And there was a lot of people who would play it without any bots and just with their partner, so just 2 of them. And so there was. I think people play it in a lot of different ways. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I've been really surprised how many people do play it just single player. And I think probably the normal thing is somebody plays a bit of single player and has one friend that they play with, and so it's just the 2 of them against bots. But yeah, it's kind of all over the place, really. A lot of people would just save it as a party game and get people around and play 4-player matches. But I mean, and I've been surprised how many people are willing to do that on PC as well. How many people are, putting in the time because PC for local multiplayer is a really weird thing where it's the right platform to develop a local multiplayer game on, in terms of it being affordable and accessible and being a place where you can do something that's niche, without committing billions of dollars. But it's not the right platform to play local multiplayer on, just in terms of being so much less convenient than a console that's already sitting in your living room with 2 controllers already plugged up to your TV. So it's a bit of a weird space, and I've been really amazed how big the kind of the community of people are who do organize people around to their house and do plug their computer up to their living room TV and have four controllers plugged in and everything.
Have you seen any people playing it on Twitch at all, or and viewed what they're playing it is, and how has it influenced, if they have done it, the development? Has it, the balancing, has that changed, seeing other people play the game?
Yeah, absolutely. That was early on. That was the best thing for us. Seeing, well, like early on, Giant Bomb played it, and it was actually their session was really kind of not very good. Like one of them was just like constantly getting killed and not getting to upgrade anything and having a bad time, and it was kind of very, very obvious he was frustrated. And so we watched a lot of YouTube videos and took off all the edges which were frustrating as much as possible, because that was something was really visible.
Things we had assumed, people will learn this, people will understand this, and realizing, like in a 4-player game, you're just rushing through. You don't really have time to pick up any of the little things that we think we're kind of communicating. So really, it's taught us to be a lot more bold and simple about communicating things, and where possible, just make it so it doesn't need to be communicated. But
it's been the best playtesting, because a Let's Player will basically be like talking stream of consciousness, what they're feeling and what they're thinking about everything they're seeing as they're playing. Like, I think this does this. What does this do? Oh, okay, it does that. And so you kind of get a really good in-depth video of how someone plays the game and how they witness the game for the first time, which of course as a developer you never get that yourself, and it's very hard when you're like telling your friends, okay, play this game and I'll watch you. They're just like sitting there nervously, not saying anything, and like playing it and saying, yeah, it was pretty good, kind of at the end, and you're like, you don't have any idea like what they thought.
No, you're not getting any honest feedback you're after really in that situation.
Exactly,
yeah. So people are so polite, and you can they're polite, and they're also like asking a person for feedback afterwards or getting them to write it down or something just doesn't get you anywhere. And so I think that level of detachment, and I think because the YouTubers want to entertain their audience by sort of showing that, getting them to experience with them, their train of thought is just being spoken out loud the entire time, which is like pretty much the dream kind of situation for a playtester. So that's really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, working in studios, we had proper playtesting sessions done where they'd get they'd get people into a booth, and then they'd have all this big expensive setup, and it was just pretty useless. You got some video and some of someone kind of playing a game, but you had no idea what they were trying to do or what they were doing, and then you just see them. And then at the end, they'd have like an interview, and they'd sort of fill out a form or something, and you just get this really wide kind of general impression. Maybe there was one, they do it with a few people, and one of them had this problem, so I guess we fixed that, and you got but it was not nearly as useful as just having some Let's Players playing the game.
Free marketing which is always good.
Yes, absolutely.
Any idea then when the full releases of the game, like how far away is it from you saying that's it, we're happy with it? Of course we'll do patches, I imagine, later in balancing, but like saying this is it, it's going gold.
Yeah, we want to get it out this year. That's a big struggle at the moment, figuring out what goes in the final, the 1.0 version, and how, because the project has been going for a lot longer than we planned and than we wanted, and we'd like to be working on kind of more stuff at the same time. So, but then there's the point where we release the 1.0 is kind of the content that it'll be reviewed as. So, yeah, we're kind of constantly umming and ahhing about what features on our list of awesome things that we want to put in there are important enough that they really need to go before the 1.0. And then there's a whole lot of stuff that, these days you can just keep updating things after launch. And if you've got a good community, that just keeps them strong and keeps them interested. So I'm pretty keen to, keep this going for as long as I can, really, after 1.0. So it's just, it's
you said you're keeping the community there, aren't you? You by kind of interacting with them even after the game's released and keeping the new content coming out, or balancing stuff, and talking to them. You'll be, keeping the community interested, and hopefully keep it going for longer and longer.
Yeah, and this game is pretty much sort of, I guess, like my ideal playground to make stuff. Like I like making monsters. I like doing weapons and attacks and stuff like that. And because it's quite modular and it's just all these pieces that can be plugged in, but there's nothing missing if they're not there, it's kind of the perfect thing to just have sitting there. And then if I feel like it, I just thought of a monster, I can easily draw a new guy, stick him in the game, and just plug him into an evolution tree, and that's there. I don't have to rebuild or redesign the game to facilitate one more monster at all. So yeah, it's pretty good like that. So it's something
you mentioned... Sorry, go for it.
Oh, it's something that we'll definitely keep supporting after 1.0.
You mentioned about like kind of plugging things in and making it quite modular. Have you ever thought about like maybe as an afterthought, like almost a sandbox mode? So the community can almost make their own stories, their own levels.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of
asked
people
us
asking
about
for mod support. Yeah, and there's a few issues with just like giving mod support that are a bit annoying with Unity. Partly because we're using some third-party licensed things, so we can't sort of make that available. That's probably the biggest hurdle. But yeah, a lot of people have asked about that. It's also like we kind of have a very unique work style, me and Barney. Like, as you know, Barney's an animator, an artist, but really good with the technical side of stuff. So the sort of the system, like I'll kind of expose a lot of code and tools, and he'll be able to just build up attacks and animation and sort of hook up animations with effects and all this crazy stuff going on without extra code support, which sounds like it'd be good for modding stuff, but it's actually really incredibly complicated, the scope of the stuff that's editable, and how fiddly it is to actually set something up. Yeah.
I think trying to make any of this stuff like usable by someone who hasn't kind of just developed this really like arcane knowledge of the ins and outs of the project would be really difficult. And even just trying to write a document that said, okay, well, if you want to make a guy attack and move forwards, you've got to do this and put these tags in here and change that, and that value over there changes this. I think if we were going to do that, we'd then sort of be pressuring ourselves to make those tools more user friendly, and doing that would just be a massive amount of work.
Totally. I guess it would get in the way of the core game itself.
Yeah, like if it was trivial to just put it out and people could just add things, it would be really cool. It would be really exciting to see. Like there's definitely a lot of young pixel artists and stuff who are drawing their own crawl-inspired monsters and things and saying, oh yeah, this guy'd be cool, put him in the game. And it would be a real kick, I think, to watch, especially what like younger kids kind of built. I think that'd be, I definitely did a lot of that when I was young, just like using an engine to tear Doom apart and put in my own stupid sprites and things like that, and how kind of exciting that was. And so I can definitely imagine it being fun for other people and fun for me watching what they do. It's just a matter of time and effort, and if we can actually pull it off without it just being 6 months of hard work.
Totally. So, of course, part of working hard on your game, what else are you looking forward to in the world of games the rest of 2016 then?
Hyperlight Drifter just came out. I'm looking forward to playing that.
Nice.
What's
it actually about?
We have Hyperlight Drifter.
Yeah.
It's just a gorgeous pixel art in a slightly Zelda-y kind of setting. But yeah, it's a lot more, the aesthetics and stuff are a lot more kind of future-y, and I don't know, it's just visually gorgeous and looks kind of like a like modern Zelda 1, maybe a really modernized thing with really good art.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That sounds actually really fun. Like, I guess it's kind of a throwback to the old retro bit of nice looking pixel art.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of much more modern stuff on the mechanics. Yeah.
Any particular game developers that you've think we should take interest in?
I think the guys who made the guys who made Devil Daggers are obviously. Have you guys aware of Devil Daggers?
Yeah, we've played it. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll be very curious to see what those guys do next. Yeah, I think I've met a few times the guys from Bone Loaf who make Gang Beasts. And that game's awesome, and those guys are just so much fun. And I mean, Gang Beasts is great, but talking to them about what their initial plans were with that game and what their future plans are, I'm actually super curious to see what their next game is going to be, kind of building on the tech that they've figured out in Gang Beasts.
Nice. So have they kind of hinted at what it might be then? Have you had the inside scoop at all?
No, I don't think I can give out any inside scoops. I don't.
That's fair enough.
So busy. Enough. I think they're so busy with Gang Beasts that they don't even know what it is yet. But yeah, I think Gang Beasts is got so much interesting stuff going on, and I can't even imagine what a game 2 would be like from those guys.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming on and doing this little interview with us. It's been really insightful.
No worries.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
I love that every single story is always so different, and I really hope the best for Crawl in the future, and I look forward to giving it a go with everyone else on my PC.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, as we're about to all say goodbye, would you guys like to let our our listeners know where they can find you and where they can find Crawl?
So I mean, we're powerhoof.com for the website. You can see our blog and work in progress art, or you can go crawlgame.com or at powerhoof on Twitter. And we've got another game that's free that you can download right now called Regular Human Basketball, which is on itch.io, which is just like a robot basketball multiplayer thing. So play that, download it, it's free.
It looks awesome. It's absolutely crazy. Looking at the trailers now, guys, if you do give it a go, it is nuts. It reminds me of like Quark, but kind of more bad.
Yeah.
And we've been Huge Update. You can find us at our website, hugeupdate.squarespace.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Huge Update. You can also find us on iTunes under Huge Update. And leave us a review, leave us whatever you like, really, to be fair. And thank you so much for listening. And for all of us, we're all going to say goodbye round about now. So, goodbye.
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 Bye.
Bye.